An intergovernmental meeting between the Ministry of Health and county ministers for health and finance took place right here at the Multimedia University 6 years ago. It is here that a proposal to equip public hospitals with modern equipment was deliberated on and approved. However, immediately after, controversy arose.
Initially, when we were told about the project, we thought the national government was giving us or helping us with equipment. At least that's how we understood it. But then when it started turning out that we would now have to get part of our own limited budget to start paying for this equipment, and a lot of us had not even understood what this whole leasing arrangement was, because it's something we've never done. We always buy outright.
Dr. Elizabeth Ogaja, Kisumu County's immediate former county executive for health, says that she remembers very clearly how the MES deal was sold to her and her colleagues. There was no clear explanation on how the MES deal would be rolled out. This is repeated in a report on the 2014 intergovernmental meeting, a meeting that she was a part of, which pointed to the lack of clarity as just one of the issues they were facing. The other issue, for instance, would be who would pay for the new shiny equipment. In this section of the report titled Equipping of the Public Hospitals, the Managed Equipment Services Project by the now retired Head of Clinical Services at the Ministry of Health, Dr. John Odondi, reveals that there was actually an initial proposal where the national government was to mobilize resources over a 4-year period. In addition, the project would be fully financed by the national government and was not going to be part of county share revenue. However, that proposal was never implemented because soon after, a new proposed approach, the current MES program running for 7 years with an option of renewal for another 3 years, would then come up. Here's how Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta and his Deputy President William Ruto sold the project in 2014.
And I want to assure you that this program is fully financed by our national exchequer. The necessary budget arrangements are in place, and this program is not a one-off.
Hii equipment tumesema tutalipa kama serikali ya kitaifa. No county government is required to pay a single cent for the equipment that we are supplying.
The counties will not only be directed to choose 2 hospitals per county by February 2014, just 3 months after the proposal was agreed upon. It also turns out that by the time of the intergovernmental meeting in 2013, successful bidders had already been identified.
The way we are traditionally doing equipment procurement is that we will sit with our hospital staff and they would say that we need equipment X, Y, or Z. And then we'd look at the budget and then, of course, advertise tenders that way. But as far as MES was concerned, we did not actually participate actively as counties in the procurement process.
For a project in support of healthcare development in the counties, and one that would apparently be fully financed by the national government, one would assume that the county governments would be fully on board with it. But during the official signing of the contracts and project launch in February 2015, the governors were nowhere to be seen. When the president was asked about their absence, this was his response.
We think the governors are fully on board. I think people are over-exaggerating the situation. We are all keen to deliver services to our people, and I think they are keen as well.
Yet another untruth from the president. In a letter dated 10th June 2015, the Council of Governors wrote to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission expressing their concerns and dissatisfaction with the whole arrangement.
I think at the time then some of us in the counties wondered whether we were actually being given a choice as to the kind of equipment that was going to come, or whether we were just being told that this is the kind of equipment that's going to be available. The support from the national government wasn't a bad thing in itself, but the way our constitution is crafted, we should have had much more public participation. even the public themselves should have been involved to find out, is this the kind of thing or kind of service that you would want us to put in place for you?
The Intergovernmental Relations Act is very clear that where one level of government cedes its jurisdiction on a function, there must be a written agreement. So we asked the CS then, who was the Cabinet Secretary, Mailu, whether there was a contract signed between the national government and county government allowing the national government to purchase equipment on behalf of the county governments on a residual return of jurisdiction to them. That document was not there.
Let me break this down a little more. The MES had three major partners: the national government, the county governments, and the private contractors or suppliers. The national government would then negotiate the deal on behalf of the counties and then sign the contracts with the suppliers without the counties. The national government would then come back to the county governments, present MOUs that were similar for all the 47 counties, and then pressured them into signing the documents, thus binding them to the deal. When the governors requested for the contracts which the national government had signed with the suppliers on their behalf, their request was neglected.
For this one, we were not involved, even invited to sit in on any part of that procurement process, except to say these are the people who have been appointed or given the various lots to provide, and these are the people you're going to be working with when they come to the county, to your hospitals, to install the equipment. To be honest, we felt pressured because there was a lot of communication that some of the governors held out, but eventually, and I don't know what the discussion what they were told, but they ended up all signing except for maybe one.
So in terms of due diligence, you'll find that there will be procurement irregularities in terms of the contract itself. There will be the question of the transfer. How did you procure this without consulting national county government officials? But more importantly, as to whether we have actually been hoodwinked by the contractors into what would be a purchase disguised as a lease.
Kuna wengine ambao tuliwaambia tushirikiane tuweke facilities hiyo, wanatuambia nani alifanya tenda. Sasa wewe haja yako ni tenda ama haja yako ni wananchi kupata madawa?
This statement by the Deputy President, seemingly disregarding concerns raised about the MES tender as well as the suppliers' information, raised vital questions about Kenya's contracting and procurement process.
A story of a public finance system that is linked to a web of companies and people with an altogether different motive. When we shared with him...
In the first episode of our investigative series on the capture of Kenya's procurement systems, we showed how taxpayer money is lost or stolen and further connected that information to the likely perpetrators of some possibly corrupt dealings in the country. We noticed the same in the MES project, this time in payments to companies subcontracted to provide specific products under the scheme.
So that's a systems capture, which these people, but this must be people who are very knowledgeable and they knock on the doors and create budgets.
The MES program had just 5 contractors, all international companies. But payment data leaked to us from Kenya's Public Procurement Payment System, the Integrated Financial Management System, or IFMIS, led us to a number of local companies. One of them was Angelica Medical Supplies Limited, which was paid 38 million shillings as procurement of consumables for the MES program. Consumables are medical tools used as part of a hospital's environment alongside the equipment purchased. Things like surgical gloves, syringes, and needles. We decided to call this company to find out more.
Hello?
Yes, how are you?
Fine.
Yeah, I see you supply medical equipment, right?
Yes.
And I see there was a payment of 38 million made on 6th June 2017 for the consumables of medical equipment to the Ministry of Health.
There's nothing like that. We don't sell equipment to the Ministry of Health. We sell consumables, but I can't remember if it was when we sell not MES. They're not MES. There's nothing like MES consumables.
That's how they.
There's nothing called MES consumables. So if you're honestly on IFMES, that's not the information you have.
Although Angelica Medicals Limited denies supplying any MES consumables, back in Longisa County Referral Hospital, we found that they are the suppliers of the hospital's renal unit. This equipment is more than a consumable. It is part of the kind of equipment that one of the companies on the official suppliers list, Belco SRL, an Italian-based company, is supposed to be supplying. According to the government of Kenya's procurement portal, Angelica Medical Limited listed directors are Nicholas Gitonga Matu, Daniel Matu Njuguna, Mary Wanja Ibotu, and Stella Nyamu.
How did you start your engagement as KEMSA with Angelica?
When being questioned by the Senate Ad Hoc Committee on why Angelica was selected as a sole supplier of MES consumables under a restricted tender, Kenya Medical Supplies Agency, KEMSA, CEO Dr. Jonah Manjari claimed that Angelica was referred to them by Belco.
We interacted with the manufacturer and we were directed to their local agent, who is in the first column of the renal consumables. The manufacturer is Belco and the local agent is Angelica Medical Supplies Limited.
And as it turns out, Angelica is not the only subcontractor company.
There's one particular case of a subcontract in the county of Nyamira. You find that the person who is doing the work in Nyamira is not the original 7 contractors. And therefore, the senator then Nyamira asked the question, on what basis did you subcontract this person, this particular company? So in interrogating those contracts, we want to see the question of subcontracting, whether there is a local company that can manage the consumables, what is being consumed, who are counties engaging with. Are they local contractors here? In normal leasing contracts, you actually pay for the consumables after the fact, not in advance. In this particular case, we are paying for the consumables in advance. You are anticipating breakage. You are anticipating repair.
Although Angelica Medical Supplies Limited, among other companies, are subcontracting for the MES program, it is difficult to prove whether these companies are doing businesses with the government lawfully because none of the contracts for the scheme have been made public. Since the medical equipment leasing scheme was made public in 2014, a case for it had already been built in the surging number of cancer diagnoses in Kenya. In 2012, 2 years before the MES project was made public, Esther was 26 years old and trying to make it in Kenya's capital. She had started to fall ill but wasn't diagnosed correctly. 6 years later, she had stage 2 cervical cancer. Her sister Gladys remembers what they were told about whether Esther would receive the care that she needed.
Sasa mimi wakati nilienda Kenyatta, waliniwauliza nitalipa, wakaniambia hiyo kitu inasimamiwa na serikali. Mashini zimekuja siko huko, sisi hatuna na hiyo kitu ni vile nilipeleka Kenyatta, hata nilikuwa na uoga tu. Juu nilikuwa na shida nitaenda kuambiwa aje. Yenyewe sina pesa. Sina pesa. Juu ile napatanga sana mimi upata 400 kwa siku. 400 ile pesa napatanga kwa siku. Tunangangana, mimi nikitua nguo hata kama kuna mvua mimi naamka naenda nafua ndio apate nini chakula. Nampikia uji, nampea matunda, kila kitu, na breda nili make sure nilijaribu nikanunua ile breda. Namfanyia akitaka carrot na bread, cabbage, spinach, zile niliambiwa at least asiishe nguvu kwa mwili.
Gladys was struggling, but she was still doing the much that she could to ensure her sister's health did not get worse than it already was.
Juu naumwa hata saa siendi choo kubwa.
Sasa kila siku uwezi atatoka kwa kitanda unakaa tu hapo.
Siwezi kaa chini, shindaga nimelala.
4 years before she was diagnosed with cancer, the EMEAS program was unveiled by Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Every year we shall make available 38 billion shillings to deliver health services to our people.
It is important that we stop and reverse Kenyans going below the poverty line because they are looking for money to pay for illness.
It was Kenya's latest solution to the country's long-running healthcare problems. But it isn't the first. Free healthcare to all Kenyans was one of the first proposals by the Kenyan government at independence. By 1970, the government, through the Ministry of Health, had nationalized the free healthcare for all policy to all the public health facilities. This would see more primary health facilities constructed to offer these services. Soon after the implementation of the free healthcare program, the country's economy began to deteriorate. In 1989, the ministry would then reinstate user fees in order to continue operating the public facilities. Since then, Kenya has tried to restructure its healthcare system several times, including today's devolving of that function to counties under the country's devolved system of governance.
Previously, with the centralized government, all our systems were run from Afya House in Nairobi. And it had its own pros and cons. Now, with devolution, it has also brought its own good, a lot of good actually, and some bit of its challenges too. One of the good is that now we can solve our own challenges within. I don't need to go to Nairobi to access a service or to raise an issue that I'm facing at the healthcare place.
With devolution in place, health among other government functions would be devolved to county governments, an action that will seemingly impact positively on service delivery and local governments. But even with devolution, our health sector specifically still seems to be struggling.
The world over, one of the primary concerns of any government is food security and healthcare, and both are tied together. More importantly, we are looking to a country where we are going to preventive healthcare more than curative healthcare. Why are Kenyans feeling the pain of healthcare? Because they are doing curative healthcare as opposed to preventive healthcare. And it's tied to food security.
The glaring holes in the government's undertaking were just the first of a series of problems that the EMEAS would face. Shortly after the launch, delivery of equipment began in various county facilities, regardless of whether their governor had signed or not signed the MOU.
This equipment were delivered to counties on Saturday, on Sunday, at night, in cartons, and chiefs went everywhere saying, people are dying because your governor has refused the equipment. So it was then turned political.
This isn't a nice sub-county hospital in Sotik, Bomet County, one of the 94 hospitals that received the EMEAS equipment despite the then governor, Isaac Ruto, having not signed the MOU on behalf of his county.
The first equipment delivered to Danai Sub-County Hospital was the radiology equipment, and that was in 2015. Actually, the hospital was not ready for the equipment. For example, the project actually had to build the radiology unit, which was not there, so that the equipment could be used. And at that time, the theatre was under construction. So it was not possible to deliver the theatre equipment until this year.
These satellite images paint a picture of what the situation in the Danai Hospital has been like since 2015. Take note of the buildings coming up over the years. Some of these buildings were completed in 2019, 4 years after some of the equipment they were supposed to house were delivered to the counties. Meanwhile, as Ndanai Hospital faced an infrastructural challenge, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Referral Hospital in Kisumu County had received an additional 7 ICU beds to the 7 that they had already procured as a county.
For example, if you take the ICU nurses, if we have 3 shifts in a day, 24 hours is divided into 3 8-hour shifts. Because of the intensity of the work, you need 2 ICU nurses for each patient bed. And that would mean that for 1 bed, I would need 6 ICU nurses. So for 14 beds, you can do the math, I need about 80, almost 100 nurses just to manage the ICU beds. So we just used, we opened the number of beds that we were able to with the staff that were available. And that's what we did. Some beds, were unused because we couldn't operate them without the staff.
If you look at the building blocks of a healthcare system, the critical one that was overlooked by almost everybody was the human resource aspect. There are institutions that we've had that have equipment, but they are not utilizing them. It would have made sense if you give those to other hospitals that are high volume and have people who have been trained to use those ones.
Underutilization and in some cases zero utility of the equipment is a problem Dr. Birek admits has kept county health officials worried. What he may not know, however, is that this same problem is actually closer home. A few kilometers from Longisa County Hospital, where he works, Ndanai Hospital holds evidence of this.
As we talk now, the CSSD machine is not yet operational because of the issue of power challenge.
When was it delivered? When was
the CSSD machine was actually delivered at the same time with the radiology equipment.
That was in 2015. 4 years later, the theatre sterilizing machine in Ndanai remains unused but paid for due to lack of a 3-phase power connection. Even though the cable connection was ongoing when we visited the facility, this raises an important question on value for money. A challenge that Senator Mutula Jr. admits exists in other hospitals too.
Half of the hospitals, the 94 hospitals originally in the contract, have not utilized the equipment. Kitui County, Trans Nzoia County, Elgeyo Marakwet County Elgeyo Marakwet received some of the equipment this year. Some were taken to 2015. Kitui has not utilized them. Trans Nzoia, some of the hospitals have never utilized because first, some need electricity, they don't have electricity. Some need training, no training has been done. Some need expertise, there's no expert in the county to date.
There's a lot of weaknesses, systemic weaknesses. I can't quantify them, but there are systemic weaknesses which we've raised in the reports. In some cases, we have actually gone to counties where they have not, where things have been delivered, and there is nothing. Or there is something, but they're in boxes.
And every county, irrespective of size, irrespective of population, is paying uniformly. There's just something not right about that. I cannot see the economy of scale. I cannot see the logic. Even if I'm not a medical doctor, even that doesn't make sense.
Why would a government concerned with the healthcare of its people allegedly force a scheme onto counties that didn't want or ask for it? Who stood to benefit from delivery of expensive machines that couldn't be used? Were local subcontractors the beneficiaries that the government had in mind? Was it government officials, or was the MES a good plan, badly executed? These questions didn't just bother us. They bothered Kenya's immediate former Auditor General, Edward Ouko, as well.
First of all, who is it who forced that? That would be the first thing, because if there is evidence that the person who you are sending it to, in this case, didn't want it, then why did you insist?
While the leasing program became a ground for political battles, Esther, a Kenyan citizen with nothing but hope of getting access to medical care, got worse along with thousands of other Kenyans.
Haki siwezi, sina. Ningekuwa na uwezo, ningesimama na yeye. Lakini kwa saa hii, sina uwezo wowote. Ile uwezo niko nayo ni ya kumpatia chakula na watoto wake. Nimejaribu kutembea huku kote, nimekosa mtu mwenye anaweza simama na sister yangu.
A few days after this interview, the crew that helped me film with Esther and Gladys raised some money for Esther to start her treatment. The generosity of strangers had once again swept in to fill a void that stands between the aspirations in Kenya's Bill of Rights and the treatment that Kenyans, especially those with little to spare, receive in government hospitals across the country.